So what's going on guys, Kids here, and welcome back to a brand new video. For today I will show you the best Yujin build in the first Descendant. So in this build guide I will show you what weapons and modules you want to get. Then I will explain every single skill and show you the best reactor stats and external components. And lastly, we will take a closer look at the gameplay and weapon mods, so you would be able to get the best results, like the highest healing and damage possible, and much more. If this sounds interesting to you, then let's get right into it. So then let's move over to the build. Yujin is a support character. This is currently the strongest healer in the game, who can provide massive amounts of healing to the group. Not only that, he can also buff allies by giving them damage mitigation, and his revive speed is just about 1 to 2 seconds. And when someone gets revived by you, they also become alive with max HP. On top of all of this, because of our setup, we will be also able to debuff enemies by reducing their defenses and even do a bunch of damage ourselves. Overall, Yujin isn't really needed in early to mid game content because players don't really need heals at that point, but you will become very overpowered in the endgame. So if you don't mind power leveling through the leveling process to become overpowered in the endgame, then that's the build for you. So then with that said, now let's take a look at our build modules. And like per usual, I will show you two setups. So the first build will be for leveling, so from 1 to 30. And then the endgame build will be from level 30 and beyond. So first of all, for the leveling build, we will just focus on mostly damage, as that will be the fastest way to level. So we will want to get the skill extension that improves the duration of your skills. Then energy collection that increases your mana recovery. Then emergency measures, which increases skill critical hit rate and skill critical hit damage. Then the short sword that changes your sub attack to a short sword. This will increase your module capacity based on the enhancement level of the module. You can use a different sub attack module if you prefer. The only important part in this slot is to increase the module capacity. Then next up we have the nimble fingers that reduces the skill cooldowns. Then skill expansion that improves the range of your valid skills. And finally the medical support that improves your HP heals. And then now let's move over to the endgame build, where we will focus on doing as much healing as possible, while having really good damage as well. So I recommend to get the Battle of the Stamina to increase max HP and skill duration. Then skill extension that improves the duration of your skills. Then time distribution that reduces skill cooldowns and increases max HP. Then energy collection, which increases mana recovery. Then emergency measures, which increases skill critical hit rate and skill critical damage. Then the short sword that changes your sub attack to a short sword. This will mainly increase your module capacity. Then nimble fingers that reduces the skill cooldowns. Then skill expansion, which improves the range of valid skills. Then passionate sponsor. When buffing or recovering an ally, you will gain increased weapon ADK and skill power modifier for the next 5 seconds. This can stack up to 10 times. Then the skill simplification, which increases the skill power and reduces max mana by a smaller amount. And finally the medical support, which improves your HP healing. Then next up, let's take a look at the best weapons and mods that we should use. So for our weapon loadout, the first one is the Thunder Cage submachine gun that emits an electric shockwave and grants a bonus to a damage after a kill. This complements your Yujin weaknesses, which is AoE damage, allowing her for AoE damage potential while healing at the same time. And then for the weapon mods, we wanna get the Hawkeye that improves your accuracy. Then rifling reinforcement, which significantly improves your weapon attack. Then concentrate support ammo, which gives you more rounds per magazine and slightly more firearm critical hit damage. Then action and reaction, which improves attack and recoil. Then marksman, which improves critical hit rate and slightly improves attack. Then weak point sight, that greatly improves weak point damage. And finally the fire rate up, which significantly improves your fire rate. Then for the second weapon, we wanna use the Nazestro's Devotion. This is a great secondary weapon for the Yujin build. It works especially well if you are good at aiming and are confident at hitting enemy weak points. Hitting an enemy's weak point will reduce the enemy's defense by 30% for 3 seconds, indirectly buffing the damage of all of your attacks. So then for the mods, we wanna get the rifling reinforcement that increases ADK, then better insight that increases critical hit rate, then better concentration, which increases critical hit damage, then Vibration Absorption, that reduces recoil, then Fire Rate Up, which increases the fire rate, then Hakai, that improves accuracy, and lastly the Expand Impact Magazine, which improves your weapon magazine size. And finally, for our third weapon of choice, we have the Tamer Machine Gun. I recommend switching to this weapon when you need high, sustained single target DPS. All machine guns are not the most accurate weapons in the game, their aiming is still decent, so try to aim for weak points as much as possible. And then for mods, get the Rifling Reinforcement that improves 80k, then Electric Enhancement, which adds electric 80k equal to a portion of the firearm's 80k, then Action and Reaction, that improves firearm 80k but increases recoil, then Weak Point Insight, which increases your weak point damage and slightly increases the critical rate, then Weak Point Sight, that increases your weak point damage, and finally the Fire Rate Up, that of course increases your weapon's fire rate. Then next up, let's go over to the base reactor and external components. So your reactor is very important item that determines your skill damage and can also include extra modifiers that buff certain aspects of your build. The better your reactor is, the more damage your skills will deal to enemies. I recommend prioritizing using a reactor with a high skill power and a sub-attack power. Secondary, look out for a reactor that buffs fusion and or non-attribute skills, as most of the Yujin skills will fall into these categories. Overall, the materialized mixture is the best reactor for our build because it buffs your non-attribute and fusion type skills. Non-attribute is your Descendant attribute, and fusion buffs are skills like the Restructure Serum and the Hyper-Reactive Healing Ground skills. Then the second choice, if you can't get the first one, is the Materialized Singularity Reactor, which buffs non-attribute and singular type skills. So for example, our Solidarity Healing or the Stimulant Spray skills. But then as for your external components, they're even more of an RNG, at least until you've played the game for long enough, to find basically every single possible combination with a good stat roll. I specifically recommend to get the components with max HP, HP recovery and defenses, as our build needs all of these stats, so you can just stack all of them together, or just use whatever best job you got. And finally, let's take a look at our skills. The first passive skill is called the Stop Overreacting, which significantly reduces the time to rescue allies. Targets rescued by the Yujin gain max HP after revival. Then our first active skill is the Solidarity Healing, that summons a recovery drone that attaches to allies to heal them. It recovers targets and increases their 80k through the accelerant effect upon dismissal. Then the second one is the Restructure Serum, that fires a Restructure Serum forward, decreasing defenses and inflicting allergy. When attacking enemies with the allergy, it heals nearby allies and grants additional healing to the teammates who kill the enemy. Then next up we have the Stimulant Spray, that grants stimulation to allies. While stimulation is active, incoming damage is reduced, and recovery is received when stimulation ends. And finally we have the Hyper-Reactive Healing Ground, which can heal yourself and allies, granting purification and immunity to remove or prevent debuffs. Additional recovery is based on the number of allies and enemies within range. And at the same time, you will be granted the Hyperactivity effect, which will increase your 80k and skill power. And last but not the least, let's quickly go over a few tips and tricks. The best way to play Yujin is in group content is by being the support healer. Your goal is to buff your party constantly with the Solidarity Healing and the Rescue Serum. Solidarity Healing attaches a drone to a target. Once the duration has expired, you and the party members gain a massive boost to the firearm 80k and a skill power bonus for 5 seconds. This skill should be used not only for healing but also for damage. Then Restructure Serum debuffs enemies, which makes them to take 10% more damage over 5 seconds. This should kill bosses quickly while providing healing if within close range. You can even gain 2 stacks, so you can use this debuff back to back for 10 seconds of boss burst damage. Then for self-healing, use the Hyper-Reactive Healing Ground. This skill has to be manually activated, and it scales from how many allies and enemies are around you in 8-meter radius. Therefore, you have to use the skill to heal yourself or allies when mobs are surrounding you. Then the second heal for allies is the Stimulant Spray, which grants damage reduction in healing, but isn't mobile. Once you use it, it stays stationary and scales healing based on how often allies are hit. Therefore, you want to use this during stationary gameplay, or when resurrecting a single ally. And last but not the least, your positioning should be mid to rear and close to a ranged damage dealer. For someone who needs healing, you have to focus on buffing your highest damage dealer and keeping him alive to optimize your party's damage. If you play solo, it will be slower to progress, but in group play, this is where the Yujin will truly shine. And that's about it. So with that said, I really do appreciate everyone for watching, guys, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or suggestions, then feel free to leave your comments in the comment section down below. And while you're doing that, please click like, subscribe and enable that notification bell, so this way you could support the channel and not miss any more amazing content. With that said, you have an amazing day and I will see you in the next one, so take it easy, peace.